What's going on, everybody? Kalipa's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you 5 reasons to buy the Motorola Moto G Power 2022 in 2022. Now, this phone, of course, is the successor of the Motorola Moto G Power 2021. And with the release of this phone, Motorola has definitely made a few interesting changes to the Moto G Power lineup. So if you want to learn more about that, be sure to check out my full review of this phone and the comparison between this phone and its predecessor, the Moto G Power 2021, on the channel. And for your convenience, I have included the link to this phone in the video description, so definitely check that out as well for the latest info on pricing and availability, because this does change from time to time. But with all that being said, let's get started. So the first reason to buy the Motorola Moto G Power 2022 in 2022 is the display. Now, this phone has a 6.5-inch 90Hz IPS LCD display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 270, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and a screen-to-body ratio of around 79.7%. So technically the bezels are a little bit thick, but honestly I really don't notice it a whole lot. They are evenly spread out. The bottom bezel isn't too much thicker than the rest of it, so it really doesn't look that bad. Now, as far as the rest of the display goes, of course it would have been nice to get a 1080p display instead of 720p, but for what it is, it's really not that bad. Phones in this price range usually still end up having only 720p displays, and while I do hope that does change in the near future, that is how entry-level phones currently are. Now, even though it's only 720p, the image is still pretty crisp and sharp, and it doesn't look bad at all. In addition to this, the colors look decently bright and bold too, and overall, that combined with the size of the display at 6.5 inches, this phone is going to be a pretty solid choice for content consumption. So if you're streaming videos, viewing photos, playing games, even reading, this phone will get the job done for that. Now, on the subject of reading, if you're reading an article or even a book or something like that, this phone is also a pretty good choice for it because it has a taller form factor, so more stuff is going to fit on the screen, so you won't have to scroll as much. Another nice, fairly unique thing about this display is that with this phone, we're getting a 90Hz refresh rate. Now, that basically means the movement on the screen is going to be a little bit faster and smoother, and it's going to give the phone a more premium feel when you're using the OS. This is also going to help with content consumption, so if you're watching videos or playing a game maybe, it will make a difference. Now, this isn't really a game changer, but when combined with all the other benefits of this display, it does make for a real nice experience. My second reason to buy the Motorola Moto G Power 2022 in 2022 is the storage. This phone is getting 64GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and that's definitely a good amount of storage. In some ways, it actually is an improvement from the Moto G Power 2021, because while the Moto G Power 2021 still did have a 64GB variant, there was also a 32GB variant, and in my opinion, 32GB really isn't enough even for the average user. No matter what you're doing with your phone, unless you're doing absolutely nothing with it, you're probably going to go through 32GB pretty quickly. These days, with apps, the system, and data in general just getting larger and larger as time goes on, it's definitely more important now than ever to have extra storage. So with this phone, getting 64GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion and not having a variant with less storage than that is definitely a step in the right direction. Now, do I think they could increase it to 128? Absolutely, and I would love to see that. Motorola actually does have other phones like the Moto G Stylus and the Stylus 5G. They have 128GB and even up to 256GB of internal storage, but this phone, being sort of on the lower end as far as the Moto G lineup goes, is probably going to take several years, if I had to guess, to actually reach that level. But all the same, I'm really glad that with the Moto G Power 2022, they seem to have gotten rid of the 32GB variant and just stuck with the 64GB variant, because 64GB is definitely, even in this day and age, an acceptable amount of storage. And for the average user, especially combined with the microSD card expansion, this is going to be plenty. My third reason to buy the Motorola Moto G Power 2022 in 2022 is the camera quality. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown on all the cameras this phone has. So up here on the front-facing camera, we got a nice looking hole punch front-facing camera. Looks super clean. I really like this look that they gave it, putting it right in the middle instead of off to the side like they did with the Power 2021. Not that that looked bad, but I do personally think this looks a lot better. Now, this camera is 8 megapixels, so we're definitely gonna get some good quality photos with this. Now, we got a triple camera setup on the back with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera for portrait mode, and a 2 megapixel macro camera. Now it is a little disappointing that there's no ultra wide camera, but there wasn't an ultra wide camera on the Moto G Power 2021 either. So I'm not that surprised, although it's still a little disappointing seeing that the Moto G Power 2020 actually did have an ultra wide camera and they took that feature away in 2021. I was kind of hoping they'd bring it back, but again, I didn't really get my hopes up too much. But even without an ultra wide camera, this camera setup is really nice. With a 50 megapixel main camera, you're going to be getting some real nice photos that you can keep for social media or something like that. Even if you just want to take a few photos here and there for memories, getting them in real good quality never hurts. Now to give you an idea of what this camera can do, this is a photo taken with the rear camera. This photo was taken right at the beginning of a sunset, and it looks real nice. The colors were captured really well. The details are sharp and professional looking. My only slight complaint here is that it's a little dim. Now, I do understand that this is a lower end phone, and typically the lighting isn't usually captured the best with this type of phone. But at the same time, I have seen plenty of phones around the same price range that do take brighter photos. But with that being said, under normal circumstances, most people are probably going to be taking photos in pretty good lighting, and these subtle things that can be improved are really nothing a good photo editor couldn't fix. Now this was a photo taken with portrait mode, and I'm actually really impressed with this portrait mode. Usually in phones in this price range, even phones that are a little bit above this, the portrait mode doesn't actually look that good. And keep in mind that portrait mode is actually meant for people, and this photo obviously isn't even close to that. So the fact that it did so well with this just goes to show that if you're taking some nice portrait photos for social media or something like that, they're going to turn out really well. As you can see here, the background is blurred appropriately, and there's no distortion around the edges of the subject, which I was actually surprised about because with most entry-level phones, if the portrait mode is even usable, there's usually at least a little distortion, but with this photo, it does look really good. Now my fourth reason to buy the Motorola Moto G Power 2022 in 2022 is the battery. With a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, you're definitely going to be getting a lot of battery life, probably multiple days worth of battery life for that matter, unless you're using it really heavily. Then it might vary, but in general, the battery on this phone is among the best you can get. And in addition to just having a lot of life per charge, a large battery like this is going to have more longevity in general, because down the road, all batteries are going to start to degrade eventually. But with a large battery like this, the degradation isn't really going to affect your day-to-day activities nearly as quickly, because with a battery of this size, you're already going to have way more life than you need per day. So it's going to take a lot longer than it would with a smaller battery like an iPhone's battery to get to the point where you really just need to get a new phone. So if you do like to get one phone and keep it for a long period of time without replacing it, then the Moto G Power 2022 is going to be a good bet for that. Now my fifth reason to buy the Motorola Moto G Power 2022 in 2022 is the security options. Now this phone has both a fingerprint scanner right here on the back and face unlock as well. Having several different options to unlock your phone is always a good thing because you might be in a situation where one will work better than the other. So having both the fingerprint scanner and face unlock never hurts. And of course, if you have a preference, if you prefer face unlock or if you prefer a fingerprint scanner, it's not going to matter because again, this phone does have both. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and give the fingerprint scanner a try and see how well it works. There we go. One more time. And there we go. So as you can see, this fingerprint scanner is real fast and responsive. No issues here at all. So if you're looking for a phone with a really reliable fingerprint scanner and face unlock to go along with it, the Motorola Moto G Power 2022 is going to be a great option. But those were 5 reasons to buy the Motorola Moto G Power 2022 in 2022. There are lots of other reasons to buy this phone, and there are also a few reasons you might not want to buy it. So if you want to learn more about that, definitely check out my other videos about this phone on the channel, where we take a more in-depth look at this device and what kind of value it really provides. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you found this information useful as well. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And once again, I will see you in the next one.